Welcome to the Futurist Society podcast, where we delve into the latest advancements in technology, science, and culture. From discussions on the latest breakthroughs in AI, biotechnology, and space exploration, the Futurist Society is your window into all of the awesomeness that the future holds. Get ready to be informed and inspired as we consider the positive impact of emerging technologies on humanity. Without further ado, welcome your host, Dr. Awesome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Futurist Society, where we are talking in the present, but talking about the future. We're talking today with Leire, who is a really thought leader in the area of longevity and life extension. So, Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now and how you're pushing this field forward.
Yes. I've been involved in longevity through gene therapy. And gene therapy is a bad word, it seems, for people. It's $1 million therapies. And in fact, gene therapy is progressing absolutely at a tremendous pace. And I thought it was possible to apply all the gene delivery technology to the longevity. I'm in favor of a stochastic explanation of aging, accumulation of random damage in the DNA and epigenomic changes. And this is regulated by genes that have been identified. We start to understand the biology of aging and we identify those genes. And I saw that the tools we have developed for gene therapy could be applied and be a very good solution for solving the issue of longevity. That was where I come from.
That's cool. So,
this company. Oh, sorry.
No, I'd love to hear about your company. Tell me about your company.
Oh, yeah. So I created a company 3 years ago. It's mostly based on the work of Vera Gorbunova. Do you know Vera?
No, I don't.
She's a professor of biology at Rochester University in New York.
Okay.
And in 2019, she published a very interesting, at least a paper that interested me, in Cell. Cell is quite good.
Yeah, I'm familiar with journal. That I'm familiar with, yeah.
Thank you. And the idea, she looked at rodents. And in rodents and the rodent family, you have a huge discrepancy in life expectancy. You have some rodents like mice, they live 2 to 3 years. And on the other hand, you have beavers or naked mole rat, they live 30 years. So that will be a tenfold difference in, let's say, between primates. You see, if we had such a difference, that will be amazing. Or we don't have such a difference in humans, so we all die more or less at the same period. So that was an interesting thing. And she was able in the paper to correlate the longevity with the quality of the sirtuin-6.
Mm-hmm.
She exchanged the sirtuin-6 gene in Drosophila to gain time, and she was able to extend or to decrease the lifespan of Drosophila. And what also was very interesting in this paper, that the difference between the sirtuin-6 of a naked mole rat and a mouse were very small. Sirtuin-6 is a small gene, and the cDNA, the portion that's coding, is relatively short. It's 1,000 base pair. It codes for a protein at 350 amino acid. And in fact, there's 2 amino acids change in the C-terminal portion at the end of the protein. So it was relatively 5 amino acids change between naked mole rat and rat, and 10 times difference in lifespan.
Wow.
That was something stunning.
Yeah.
So that paper was, whoa.
Yeah.
Could we have a better, it begged the question, could we have a better sirtuin-6 gene in human, find a better one? Obviously, we have a good sirtuin-6 because we live relatively long, but we're not the mammals that live the longest. There's a lot of mammals that are smarter than us, live longer than us, but we are in the good one. We'll live longer than the horse.
I would argue it's smarter. I think we're the smartest mammal. But anyway, yeah.
Agree.
I have a very optimistic and proud view of humanity myself, you know. So
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
I plead guilty, Your Honor. Anyway, the idea was can we find people with better sirtuin-6? So with Columbia, Albert Einstein College of Medicine, Columbia University, New York, and Rochester University, we looked at centenarians.
Mm-hmm.
And we compared, we sequenced the sirtuin-6 of centenarians, 450 centenarians and 550 control population in an homogeneous population. And we found a mutation only in centenarian. Vera Gorbunova was able to understand the mechanism why this centenarian version was better than the wild type. It was mostly on the ribosylation. Sirtuin-6 has been a very well-known gene. The sirtuin in general, the link between sirtuin and aging has been done by people like David Sinclair in Boston. Yeah. You know David.
Very familiar with David, yeah.
Okay. And he has been very famous for for selling a company to GSK about activator of sirtuins. It's kind of difficult, but anyway, he was a big promoter of sirtuin. Sirtuin-6 is interesting because compared to the other sirtuin, sirtuin-1, sirtuin-2, it's a small molecule. It's a small gene. It codes for only one protein, and so this sirtuin-6 only 2 mutations. Also at the end of the gene on the C-terminal section of the 350 amino acid protein coded by the sirtuin-6 gene. Mm-hmm. So that we know that it's not through the deacetylation portion, but more the ribosylation. And we know that, in fact, this is linked with the better ability to repair DNA breaks, and especially the double-strand breaks. So compared to the wild type, higher ribosylation of part 1, so a much better ability to repair DNA damage, especially the double-strand breaks.
Right.
Also, better ability to inhibit the line 1, so the transposon. So that's all this junk DNA we have. So that was quite interesting. There was a possibility to patent it. We patented and we created a company. We have the exclusive license on this, and we developed it.
Wow.
We developed it for now. We want to be a longevity company. Maybe I should stop already on longevity because you're futuristic. You want to. I'm afraid if you want to say we will live 100, 150, 200. That's not my main objective. I'm sorry. I'm also MD. I'm a pure product of evidence-based modern medicine. Mm-hmm. Modern medicine did a fantastic job at increasing our lifespan. Mm-hmm. 100 years ago, life expectancy 40 years, now 80 years. We gained a second life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
It's absolutely amazing.
Yep.
The issue is
health
most
span.
of us, we waste this second life fighting one of those age-related diseases. Cancer, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease, diabetes, mostly. So that gap between the health span, how long we stay healthy, and the lifespan, how long we live, is in fact increasing. We progress, but the health span, not that much. Mm-hmm. So what we give, I give you 30 more years, but you will spend these years in dialysis, going to chemotherapy 3, 4, 5 times. Okay. Now, this reality, you couple that to 2 other factors. One, the fact that for the first time in human history, we have a different demographic distribution. I've been taught in school, demography is simple, it's a pyramid. There's a lot of young guys, very few old guys. Unfortunately, it's changing.
Yeah.
For the first time, and for the people who listen to this, you may be aware, but it's not only, in developed countries, it's a Japanese problem, it's an Italian problem, it's worldwide. For the first time in human history, there's more people aged over 65 than people under 5.
I totally agree.
So there's no more pyramid. And that's a big problem because our healthcare system, our pension system, it's all based on a large base of young people taking care of a few. Okay, that's not sustainable. It's even not sustainable because as our medicine is getting more and more sophisticated, the cost of the medicine increase. So you have a larger population with a bigger needs for healthcare and more expensive healthcare. This is not sustainable. And you can do whatever you want. There's no way to escape that. So the only way is working on longevity, transforming our health, getting our healthcare to become again a real healthcare, not a sick care.
I totally agree with you for all of those reasons that you talked about. My question to you, and first off, I just want to take a step back and say, I am so excited to talk to you for a number of reasons. Number one, you are also an MD, just like myself. So I feel like that simpatico is there. Number two, the way that you broke down that concept, very complex concept that you broke down, was really well done so that everybody can understand it. And I think that's going to be so important in the whole longevity movement, the ability to tell a normal person why it's important for them to care about this. That is something that needs to be a forefront for the whole movement. I totally agree with you. And then lastly, a couple weeks ago, I spoke with Aubrey de Grey. Are you familiar with Aubrey de Grey?
Oh yes, I saw him last week. Last week he was at no. I saw him at ARDD in Copenhagen. It's a big week. Yes. Aubrey was in fact on the scientific advisory board of before. Now he's moving with Lev. He quit the Sense. The very nice guy. Is fantastic.
Yeah. So I spoke with him a couple weeks ago. And what he was promoting was Yamanaka factors, right? Which is something that
about that.
We do need to talk about that. I promise you we'll get to that. But I just wanted to first off say how excited I am to talk to you today. So that just prefaces the situation because I think it's important. So the idea of Yamanaka factors, which is huge right now, is something that's very popular. But my point is that we have to have some sort of broad-based gene therapy available for a whole host of diseases, right? So the idea that you're tackling the longevity issue with gene therapy is another thing that I want to talk with you about, because my background is in craniofacial genetics, and that is something that we're eventually going to get to. So I wanted to just preface this with talking about, yes, we're going to talk about longevity, but I also want to talk with you about genetic disorders, which is something that is very close to my heart. So I don't want to forget about it because I know this is going to be an involved discussion. Okay, so let's talk about Yamanaka factors. Explain to the people what Yamanaka factors are and the promise that they hold for longevity.
Okay. So Yamanaka is famous because he gave his name for the 4 factors, OSKM. But in fact, there were 2. They were a Japanese and an English guy. But Yamanaka is mostly the guy who gave the name to the factors. When I went to med school, I'm older than you. It was very clear we are getting the embryogenesis, and we start with this. Maybe it's the germinal cells and the somatic cells, but we start with germinal cells that are, in a way, we are immortal, because our germinal cells are immortal, and the human, our somatic cells are dying.
Right.
But okay, that's
so like the original version of like Like stem cells come from a tumor that was from a human being that has long since died, right? So like,
Exactly.
so theoretically on the cellular level, we could be immortal. Yes, I agree with you.
Exactly. Uh, anyway, Yamanaka. So when I was in school, what Yamanaka is doing and what we're doing every day in the lab was nonsense. I will not go to the next year in med school if I would have said, oh, we can go from iPSCs to very differentiated cells. The flow was going down and there was no way to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. That was the truth. And Yamanaka comes and he was trying to solve the issue of, oh, we can get stem cells through another source than the embryonic, because for ethical issues, people are not comfortable and it will be so much more comfortable. But in fact, it was more than that. It was a revolution.
Exactly.
In fact, the flow doesn't go one way, we can go back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you put the 4 Yamanaka factors, you take a fibroblast, and you can get an iPSC, so pluripotent stem cells that can do anything. It could be a fibroblast, you can differentiate it in hepatocyte, absolutely. And it's a tool that every lab is using now every day. Huh?
Exactly.
I use Yamanaka on the, okay. People like Jean-Marc Lemaitre, I'm working with Jean-Marc in France, did even better than Yamanaka. They had 2 other factors, and Jean-Marc was able to not only to take fibroblast, he was taking a senescent fibroblast from a centenarian, and he was able to add 2 factors and with those 2 additional growth factors getting to iPSC. So it's extremely flexible, and it changed everything because it changed our mindset. Aging is plastic. It's not going, it's we learn aging goes one way, but no, aging could go the other way. Now, a lot of excitement said, oh, we should inject that.
Yeah. Can I just, when you say excitement, I'm so glad that science is exciting again. I feel like for a long time it has not been, but longevity, this is like, let me give you an example. This guy, Carlos, what was his, the gentleman in the longevity space. Yes. So he came and he spoke at Cambridge, Massachusetts at the hotel across from where I live. And it was so packed. This was a huge auditorium. It was so packed that the fire department had to come and say, you have to clear out because there's too many people in this auditorium, because people were standing up. They were like, it was like a rock concert, and the excitement for this particular technology is huge. And I don't think I want everybody to understand that, like from, my wife who's not interested in science, like I want her to know that this stuff is really interesting stuff.
Oh, everybody should be. First, there's in science and in medicine, there's fields that are not particularly interesting. When I was a student, I thought, infectious disease is nice. I first went to surgery and I did kidney transplantation. And when I said to my boss, infectious disease, he said, infectious disease, are you're joking? Infectious disease, we have antibiotics. It will be something from the past. It will never happen. And then we had HIV/AIDS, and it was a revolution. It was so exciting. It changed everything. It changed not only the science, but the way we communicate with patients, we interact with patients. It changed absolutely everything. Oncology, it was, chemotherapy, and then you have this immuno-oncology came. For 10 years, it was a dream. People are saying, yes, immuno-oncology, the immune system to fight cancer. This will never work. And then you have CAR T cells, you have the checkpoint inhibitors, and everybody. Right now, the excitement is in longevity. I went to ARDD. It's a conference it's 5 days conference. And in 5 days, you start at 7 a.m., you finish at 7 p.m. You have one presentation after the others. They're all fascinating. There's so many smart people. We start to unveil aging. It's what can be more important than that?
Yeah.
It's what we
just like the idea of changing aging as an inevitability to a disease that we can treat. Oh my God, my mind
Yes.
exploded when I first read that.
Yeah, but people, I think it's not only people. I think the the medical profession doesn't. And let me take an example. Uh, I'm in perfect health. I go for my checkup and I see my cardiologist. He take my blood pressure. I said, wow, Eric, you have 18 on 10, just wow. And I just received your cholesterol, your HDL is okay, but your LDL is whoa, your ApoB, oh. Okay, we'll do nothing. Those are not disease. You didn't know. You don't have symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
What should you recommend? I should run out of the office of this cardiologist and see another one who will treat my blood pressure, will treat my cholesterol, give me a statin. And now, okay, and everybody will laugh and say, yes, poor Eric, he went to see the only crazy cardiologist. Now I go to my general practitioner, my family office, and I said, I'm getting older and I forget names. Uh, the stairs seems higher now. I'm out of breath. I used to run through the stairs to get to my lab at the third floors, and now I have to walk the last stairs. It was Eric. It's aging. You have to accept it,
Mm-hmm.
and I should not.
Mm-hmm.
I should not.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
It's not. It's a risk factor like high blood pressure, like high LDL. It's the same risk factor.
Yeah.
We had a perfect illustration with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Immune system.
Mm-hmm.
The same virus, and all the research focused on the virus. Good. That was the low-hanging fruit. That was the vaccine. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But we should remember that infectious disease, it's a dance between a pathogen and a host.
Yes.
And one thing about COVID is some people, kids, they get COVID, say, oh, I'm positive. I didn't notice.
I agree with you.
And the same virus killed the guy with the immunocompromised system. And it was all about age.
Yeah.
Age is a risk factor.
I agree.
We start to understand the biology of aging.
Mm-hmm.
We start to understand that not only we know the drivers, but we can act on those drivers.
Mm-hmm.
On animal models, we're able to extend the lifespan, the health span of animals.
Like a mouse now, the Methuselah mouse is like what people are talking about, right?
There's so much to understand. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Not only we understand, but also there's one thing that's absolutely fascinating for me is the AI, how AI is coming.
Yeah.
When I'm like you, I'm an optimist, and I'm fascinated, and I say we understand the biology. We start to understand the biology of aging. It's even more complex than cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It's multifactorial. Mm-hmm. Our brain doesn't like multifactorial. Mm-hmm. It's difficult for us. We like one cause, one consequence, simple relationship, and even the causality versus the okay, that's difficult for us. But multifactorial is difficult. AI is just deep learning. And now at the ARDD, for example, 2 weeks ago, one third of the conference was from people, from mathematicians. They get this huge amount of data. They look at the microbiome. They look at the transcriptome. They look at the DNA, at the RNA. They look at the proteome. It's massive data. We cannot make sense of it. But with AI, people like in silico, like Giro, that's amazing. That's breathtaking.
Yeah.
So lucky to be part of this revolution.
Yeah. So I'm hesitant to bring AI into this as a topic because I worry that it takes away from the gravity of longevity itself. I feel like AI right now is a buzzword that everybody is using in the same way that people were using like crypto, 5 years ago. And I know it's not the same. Like you and I were both under the same impression that I know it's not the same. I know that there are going to be profound benefits of it, but I want people to understand right now, just AI aside, like we are living in a period of exponential growth in the longevity space. And honestly, the genetics space too. I just feel like genetics is something that we knew about for a long time and it hasn't really produced the kind of results that we wanted it to. But specifically in the longevity space, there's people who like Aubrey de Grey, like David Sinclair, that you can talk to anybody on the street and they know exactly who you're talking about. That's not really the case for other types of fields. It's not really the case that like something that has a profound impact on our world, like AI, who's like the number one AI researcher? Like I can't really just shout it off on the top of my head, but people know David Sinclair, they know Aubrey de Grey, and they know that longevity is like out there, right? But it hasn't given us the same kind of treatment that I think that is available for other things, right? Like just like when you're saying, I go to my primary care physician on a regular basis, and before I chose that physician, I had to go through like maybe 5 or 6 of them, and every single person I said, listen, I want to live till I'm 150. I want to live till I'm 120. What can I do? Right? In good health, right? What can I do right now that will get me there? The majority of people were just like, that's not really what I do here. That's just not something that's interesting to me.
Yes.
And I found somebody who's like, okay, like the longevity space is interesting. I don't really know what to recommend to you, but like, let's work on your risk factors first. Okay. Like let's stop the eating of bad food. Like let's get your VO2 max to the most that it can
be.
Exactly. Yeah. Which was my next person that I was going to bring up, right? Is, Dr. Attia, who has recently come out with this book, Outlive, that you're referencing. He has the idea like, okay, these are some things that we can do to maximize the likelihood that we're going to get to the longevity technology, right?
Peter Attia recommend more or less it's the lifestyle change. And on the lifestyle change, I think you can have a marginal benefit. I don't think that will bring you to 150, but it will definitely start to help to bridge this difference between the health span and the lifespan. And you may, in terms of, it's for the people who didn't look at Outlive, I think it's a fantastic book. There's a few things I'm not super comfortable, but it's on details. And this guy is so smart that, who am I to criticize it?
Really smart guy.
But it's number one is exercise. And you can see that by far exercise is the things that you need to do. Peter Attia says type 2 cardio and zone 2. So it's I will be, but in fact, you say it's also important to have balance, to do a little bit of HIIT and something, but you need to take care, and that's the most important. Diet, to have some kind of caloric restriction that's acceptable for you, and it's not a diet for 6 months, or it's change your life, and you have a diet so you can live into a long time, and
live.
The data is there that caloric restriction, you can do caloric restriction through so many ways. You can do intermittent fasting. I like to do intermittent fasting because it helped me to do caloric restriction automatically. And by the way, there was a very interesting paper when they published in ARDD when on mice they coupled caloric restriction with intermittent fasting, the synergy. And especially when you couple the intermittent fasting, the caloric restriction, and you couple that with your circadian rhythm. So if you don't inverse, so then you have the maximum extension of your lifespan. So diet, very simple. Of course, with diet, the most simple, just stop drinking alcohol. I think it's very difficult. If I say we should drink zero alcohol, I break the rule of communication number 1, just say what people want to hear,
Yeah.
but alcohol is a poison.
Yeah.
It has been socially acceptable because before water was a poison, you will get infectious disease. So the safe choice was alcohol.
Yeah.
We built an entire culture around alcohol,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful culture.
Yeah.
I think when I meet people, from the Bordelais who can talk about those wine, it's gorgeous. But it's just a culture, there's people who can talk about how Federer does his backhand. It's the same kind of sophisticated culture. It's the same. Anyway, alcohol is a poison, and it's a very potent poison because we are made of ourselves fat and water, and alcohol has this unique ability to go through fat and water. It's soluble in fat and water. So it's a poison that can go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The metabolite of alcohol are poison. The second metabolite is a poison.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be like, I will take arsenic because in my culture, we love to take arsenic. And it's fun to take arsenic. And I like the taste of arsenic. People say, you're crazy, man. It's a poison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think in 2 or 3 generations, they will say, they were so tolerant. They were doing all those things about you cannot have a kid without celebrating with champagne. Oh, champagne is not really alcohol. It's a poison. It destroys your cells.
Yeah. Honestly, I really love the fact that, so first off, I feel like that gives you a certain sense of authenticity, is the fact that you're going to say something like that and you don't care what the blowback is for it. I do think it brings up an interesting topic, which is lifestyle choices like alcohol, like smoking. One of the questions that I have for you is that, smoking causes methylation in DNA, some of the epigenetic factors of aging, right?
Yes.
So your background is genetic. Tell me a little bit about the epigenetic factors of aging. Are the current modalities that are available looking at that? And is that going to be something that can be translated into a treatment?
Yes. So the epigenomics is, for, I don't know, your audience is, okay, we have a DNA and we sequence DNA and say, oh, we have everything, we have the answers. And then we discover that, in fact, our DNA is not expressed in every cell. It makes sense. An hepatocyte should not have the gene that are necessary for to make bones or something. You don't want to have bones in your liver. So most of the genes, all the information is there in your chromosome, but when the cells differentiate, and we come back to our Yamanaka factor discussion before, it goes down and you get differentiated and the other genes are. Now with life, to close to hide this DNA, the DNA is linked with histones and you can methylate and then it's not expressed.
Right.
With life, when you have, for example, a double-strand break or something, so that your DNA is relatively fragile, and it's a huge strand, it's floating in water, it's fragile. It breaks all the time. We repair it all the time. Sometimes we repair it poorly. When it's repaired poorly and create some aberrant protein that misfolded and stuff, we put a methyl group on it and said, okay, under the rug, nobody sees it, okay. And that is this epigenetic.
The way that I explain it to my friends that don't have a science background is that it's like when you add these methyl groups to the DNA, certain genes you don't have access to anymore, right?
Exactly.
And that might not be a problem, certain areas of our DNA are not necessary for genetic information, but there are certain areas that are, and that might come out wrong or inaccessible or whatever. But it's something that I think that people want to know is that, okay, I used to smoke in the past. I used to drink in the past. Is there anything out there for me? Is there something that can clean up my DNA per se?
We come back to the Yamanaka factors. So I will come back to the Yamanaka to answer
Sure.
your question.
Yeah. No worries.
The
No worries.
Yamanaka factors, we use it in the lab, no problem. So every day I take fibroblasts. We do organoids. For example, in my company, we like to do organoids. It's not the same as animal models in vivo, but it's also very interesting because we have human cells.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, for example, when we do an organoids of liver, we have stellate cells, Kupffer cells, hepatocytes. We don't have the endothelial cells. It's not a perfect synthetic liver, but at least it's human. And when you couple that with studies in animals, you get some very interesting results because we extrapolate a lot from mice, and we are very different from mice. Huh? If you take the skin of mice, it's 2 layers. The epidermis, our epidermis is 20 layers.
Mm-hmm.
So something that does a great thing in the skin of mice will not translate in human, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
But it's true for a lot. Cancer research, cancer research in mice has been solved in human. We're far from that.
Yeah. I was just talking to a cancer researcher that's like testing flies for different effects.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, point being is that the
Okay.
animal models are not perfect. Organoids are theoretically better, right?
So Yamanaka we use every day, and everybody is now using those 4-factor OSKM. People said, why we don't inject those?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously aging is used by this accumulation of epigenomic change, and an hepatocyte loses differentiation and gets less and less, become with age less and less. Hepatocyte becomes senescent.
Yeah.
Senescence is there's SASP, and the tissue is not as good. And okay, so can we reverse that?
Right.
And it's the question that your friends were asking, and it's a question that everybody. People said, okay, let's inject OSKM in vivo in a living mouse, and let's see if it's getting young.
Yeah. And so I just, I get that question all the time, and I tell them because it's going to cause cancer, right? That's what we're worried about.
Yes, not only cancer, but sarcoma, which is very, very bad. So you don't. Yeah. And the idea is not to reprogram to up to iPSC, but to do a partial reprogramming. So if it's an hepatocyte, you go back to young hepatocyte, you erase all this epigenomic junk that has been accumulated by life, stochastic, just by random. And that's possible. What people do that, first they put a switch on they put a doxycycline switch, and with doxy, you inject doxy, it's on and off. You can put on and off. So it's to be safe. They inject to the mice. They get rid of, for example, OSKM. You have MYC, the M at the end is pretty much oncogenic. So a lot of people said we should get MYC out. It's still interesting to have MYC, but now the trend is to say, O and S are important, SOX and whatever. But NANOG at the end is stimulated by MYC. That we get rid. People try to look at different cocktails of growth factors. I mentioned, for example, the work of Jean-Marc Lemaitre is adding 2 factors, and it could have, so it could be miR302, it could be, there's multiple factors, you can do multiple combination. And the idea is to erase that, but not to go up to iPSC, just a little bit. It will take time because you have to switch, the fine tuning is very difficult, and it's not easy. AI will play a major role on that because there's a lot of people who are evaluating a lot of combination. And when you have multiple combination, you switch, it's exponential, and it's so difficult. So, anyway, the partial reprogramming is the way people want to go. Partial reprogramming is extremely interesting. One consequences of partial reprogramming is you cannot have partial reprogramming for the entire body. And that's by the way something that's quite interesting, because you want the hepatocyte to go back, but if you test the hepatocyte, but what make the hepatocyte go this way? If you take the thymus, maybe the thymus will not move because thymus is an organ we lose after 40. More or less, our thymus is not functional. It ages faster.
Yep.
All the tissues, all the cells are not aging as at the same pace.
Right.
And for example, our thymus, and thymus is very important because if you want your T cells to become memory, they have to be activated by the thymus. So when you're over 40, you don't respond well to the vaccine because yes, your T cells are stimulated, but they don't keep the memory because they're not been activated by the thymus because your thymus is too old. If we could rejuvenate the thymus, then we could have some and the immune system, the immunosenescence it's a huge problem, very difficult because when I say immune system, I'm talking about 36 different cell types, B cells, T cells, what about a macrophage, what the role of dendritic cells, it's all different. And when I say the T cells, this is a T4 and a T8 are the same. Okay, so anyway, this partial reprogramming has to be tissue or organ, at least organ specific. And it's something
very
that's
difficult.
very interesting in the research. It also make the research very interesting. It's a little bit, we understand the biology of aging. We understand the biology of cancer. We know that, cancer is here. The biology of aging, it's even more complex. There won't be one company. So people who want to invest, they will say, in which company? Very often people ask me, should I invest in your company? Should I, in what other company? What company? I said, invest in a lot of companies because there won't be one company coming with a silver bullet.
It's going to be a combination of many different things.
Would you say, for cancer, yes, Celgene will be the company that will develop all the cancer, solve the problem, the cancer? No. There's multiple companies and there will be multiple winners. And aging, there will be same thing. There will be multiple winners. So when you say partial reprogramming, which will be coming from Altos, will coming from U-turn bio, it may come from multiple people and multiple angles. And we should be very careful in the research because it's so rich. Some people will come with the AI angle. Some people will come from the reprogramming. Some people like us will come from, let's take the problem at its source. The issue is we have DNA damage. We poorly repair DNA damage. We create this epigenomic. Let's take the gene that are regulating this epigenomic change, like sirtuin-6, and let's try to find a better sirtuin-6 to better regulate this epigenomic change. That's a different angle. There's some people will come with a smaller angle, like Unity, who will say, it's all about senescence. Senescence, we understand. And in fact, we don't. We just start to understand senescence. And, 2 years ago, senescence was bad. All the senescence was the same. Now there's good senescence cells, bad senescence. So
I'm very familiar with that aspect. I did want to talk about your target for just a second, which is the gene therapy for sirtuin-6, right? So, and I'd less so for the theory of you fixing aging, but just for genetic disorders in general. Let's talk about gene therapy for just a second, right? Which is one of the things that I told you I wanted to talk to you about. So my background is craniofacial genetics and the idea of a disease like cherubism, which is where these young kids grow tumors in their face to the point where they look like a cherub, which is why they call it cherubism. Okay. I know the gene, I know the protein that it expresses, and I know the end product, which is the cherubism, right? I was talking with another geneticist and I was like, why can't we fix that? We know all the steps in the process, just fix it. And she was saying that gene therapy is controversial because in the past that there was certain kids that were, tried to fix their genetic disorders and they had poor outcomes, some of which was death. And, that's something it's out there in the social fabric of the academia, right? Number one, my question is the stigma with gene therapy changing. That's number one. Number two is, are we in a different place from back then technologically that some of those things aren't really like, we're not going to make the same mistakes, So the stigma is overblown.
So the answer is yes and yes. Stigma is still there. And what we call gene therapy is such a big bag of different things.
Mm-hmm.
When you do, in the example you were mentioning, you want to do gene replacement. First, we had sophisticated, and that will be also answering the second, is it evolving? For gene replacement, we used to use lentiviruses, mostly viruses, and we were inserting into the chromosome. The insertion was random. You were lucky you were not inserting into a gene that's super important, but you could insert anyway. Mm-hmm. and create a lot of problems. Now we have CRISPR-9 and we can have better insertion, localization, and okay, so it evolved. But the problem of gene therapy is such a big bag that we should find the different words, because gene therapy means nothing. It's like cancer, people say cancer, yes, but breast cancer is different from prostate cancer. Prostate cancer, you can't, you have prostate cancer, the chance to die from it, it's slow progressing. Breast cancer are all the same. No, you have HR2 positive, you have the triple the negative, are totally different beasts. Same thing with gene therapy. There's the gene, for example, you can deliver and insert into our genome. Mm-hmm. And there's ethical concern. You insert in the somatic cells, so it won't be passed to the germline, but still it's there. You cannot remove it. It's okay. That's off target. It's difficult. Okay. Now we have tools like AAVs that allow to have non-inserting. So the AAVs goes into the nucleus, but it's not inserted in one chromosome. So it's an extra chromosome, and so it's a transient expression. The nucleus will at one point will get rid of the additional gene that you bring, but it's not something that has ethically, in terms of safety profile, it's much more acceptable.
Right.
Now, gene therapy is progressing and so fast. It's in fact, it's the same issue with longevity. The science is progressing so fast these days, and it's exponential when the mindset of people does not progress exponential, on the same pace. The fact we still run for breast cancer, but would people do a marathon for HR2 positive? It could be, and it will be a little bit of esophagus, a little bit of breast. No, they want to have the pink thing, just lady only, and kind of. But thinking about cancer with the organ mindset doesn't make any sense now. But the mindset is still there.
Right.
You can mobilize. Same thing with gene therapy, same thing. And it's a major problem because with the pace, the science moves so fast. And in longevity, we have so many people now who are excited. So there's a money going there, there's brain. You had first pioneers like Aubrey de Grey, David Sinclair, people you mentioned like that. The first people said, this guy, he will lose his tenure, his tenure at Harvard, and he just longevity. Man, do cancer like everyone and do kinase and it's safe and enjoy your tenure and don't make waves. Those guys were taking risk. Now there's no risk. Everybody's so yes, we should open a longevity lab, and every university has a longevity lab, and there's a lot of money but then the pace of discovery is going. On the other hand, what my neighbors, people who are not in medical field or the longevity field, they still think, aging, we always been aging. Why do you want? And it's just Jeff Bezos who want to live for 150. Yeah. It's a caprice of a billionaire. It's not for me.
People are hesitant about it. Like when I was talking with somebody, I was like, wouldn't you want to live to be 150? And they're like, no, I'm okay. And I'm like, what?
They're
Why?
right.
Yeah.
No, they're right.
Okay.
No,
yeah. Well, health span.
Makes a lot of sense with health span. Look, people will see. They will see this. This is you ask first. What is old? Mm-hmm. When you do a survey and you ask a 30 years old, what is old? It's 60. If you do the same survey and you say what is old, and you take a sample of people age 60, they say, oh, it's 80. It's always moving. It's always.
Yeah.
But they're right, because what do they see? They see people who cannot move, who are sick, who lose their mind, they have Alzheimer, they say, do I want to stay like this for 30 years additional? That's not a gift. Mm-hmm. They're smart. They understand.
Health span.
The problem is they're not aware that, in fact, they could have 30 years of rich life contributing. But the mindset is right now, it's you're old, your brain is not functioning as well, as fast. That's the new iPhone 16. Oh, you're too old for that. You won't understand. Only the kids will understand. You're too old. It's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You can be, but it's a question of mindset. If people understand that they can stay healthy, everybody would like this. Yes, if I can run a marathon when and keep my ranking in tennis when I'm 150, play ITF 140, 150 category.
Yeah, of course. Everybody would want that.
Maybe I will have a chance to beat him one day.
Yeah.
Yes, I get that. Do I want to live 150 to go from my dialysis to my chemotherapy, and I forgot my re-education for my stroke because of Alzheimer? No.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the mindset is wrong. It's because the general population doesn't have this information. I think when they say, I'm not interested, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you.
We need through your podcast, through these efforts to explain. That's so important. That change your mindset. You should not accept this cognitive decline, this loss of muscles. You should be able to keep your muscles and to be able to walk. You don't need to have getting old doesn't mean you have to have a walker. No.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you need to give up on what's considered to be a healthy lifestyle either. Listen, I honestly, Eric, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I do realize that we are coming short on our time. So I wanted to make sure that I finished up with the same 3 questions that I ask all of my guests.
Please.
So the first question is, where do you see this space in 10 years? I feel like that's a loaded question because everybody has difficulty with, gauging where their space is going to be in 10 years. But where do you hope that this space goes in 10 years?
You talk with Aubrey, so Aubrey is much more optimistic than me. But for sure, what we will get for sure in the bag, there's repurposing of drugs. And there's people like Nir Barzilai, there's
like metformin,
Brian Kennedy at NUS.
Yeah.
They repurpose drugs, and within 10 years we'll have rapamycin, metformin, AKG, urolithin, all those existing drugs will be there. They will be approved, and we'll have a marginal benefit with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's progress we can expect from people who go for gene therapy, people who go senescence, mitochondria, huge topic we didn't talk about. Within 5, 6, 10 years, we can expect to have products that will have bring a higher benefit than the marginal benefit you get from repurposing drugs. But repurposing drugs makes sense. It's cheap, metformin, rapamycin, low dose of rapamycin. It's perfect for me. And it's those people, near Barzilai, Brian Kennedy, those are people are paving the path to the other people. But we'll see things in senescence. We'll see things in gene therapies. We'll see things in mitochondria. We'll see certainly with the AI some intervention on the microbiome also.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Major. We need the deep learning on that. We need the microbiome ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But people are already working, and people like Alex Zarontov on in silico, people like Giro, fantastic people. Just we'll get something in 10 years, and that will be now reprogramming, partial reprogramming. I think we'll start in 10 years to see partial reprogramming. I don't think you will see one injection and, oh my God, now I look like I was when I was 25. But we will be able to take a thymus and get a young thymus, get a reverse. My company levers on NASH and liver. Liver we can regrow. And there's a lot of people who have damaged liver with fibrosis. Fibrosis is not supposed to be reversed.
Yeah.
In fact,
because people love alcohol, like we talked about.
Yes, and NASH is non-alcoholic. It's fat. And thank you, Coca-Cola. 12 million people estimated with NASH in the US. Leading cause of liver transplant. Liver transplant is not fun if you can find something. So in 10 years we'll have that. A little bit of reprogramming, but it will be very specific on organs, things like this. We've seen David Sinclair present something with the optic nerve. Something is publishing things with that's amazing with small molecules. In fact, it took the work of a lot of people who tried to find some other way than going with aggressive growth factors. That also could be interesting. That could lead to some discovery. I think we can be reasonably optimistic that we will get huge benefits. I'm already 66, and I think I will get some benefit in terms of longevity.
Honestly, that brings me to my next question, which is I asked Aubrey the same thing, what are you doing in your own life that's available right now that you're doing that maybe somebody might not know about? Aubrey just says he's not living his life any differently, that he's just waiting for like the technology. But like me personally, I'm trying all of the exercise techniques that Atia wrote about in Outlive. I'm also doing sauna. I'm also doing cold therapy, things like that. But what are you doing in your own life? How have you changed your lifestyle at all?
I have a different lifestyle, and lifestyle change can be relatively impressive. I do a lot of exercise, and I'm extremely disciplined. I'm doing that regularly. When exercise, not only the cardiovascular, the weightlifting, the balance. So that's a combination of Peter Attia seems good. Diet, it's very simple. I do caloric restrictions through intermittent fasting. I think that's still very good, and it's very acceptable for me. I will not recommend for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. What is your what is your window? Like, what do you like? For me, I usually have my first meal around 1 p.m. and then my last meal around 8 p.m.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's in fact a little bit. I extend my feeding window is 8 hours. So 8. So I do a little bit more. So I do noon to 8, and it's 8-hour window feeding window. And Sashi Panda said it's okay to have even a bigger window. It's not.
Whatever works
for me. I think it's interesting to have your mTOR not stimulated for one, your Yeah, insulin also not to be triggered too much. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a different. I don't want to spend too much time on that.
Honestly, I would love to
Sleep,
spend more time on that. I just,
circular sleep. I'm
yeah,
super careful. I have to travel, and I pay a lot of attention on my sleep. And social interaction. I try to get as much social interaction. So that the four sauna I do and
hmm,
the cold shower. I never take a hot shower. I take cold shower all the time,
hmm,
and all are interrelated. The sauna, you mentioned the sauna, but for the sleep, and the cold shower, that has an influence on your sleep. Your diet, and if you stop eating at 8 and you go to bed at 10 or 11, that you will have a better sleep than if you eat until 5 minutes before you go to bed. So
yeah,
they all, I separate to be discussing with you, but in life
right,
it's interacted.
yeah,
Supplement I try to avoid as much as possible. I need to have a very strong rationale. I see, I'm part of longevity group, and I see people who take something like 20, 30 supplements.
yeah.
By training, I did urology surgery and nephrologist. I'm a
Oh,
nephrologist now, by
cool.
board certified. So
Nice.
I'm very, I see so many people who had, drug interaction is very complex. And when you
Yeah,
take 20 supplements and you don't know
yeah.
what you're doing. So,
Exactly. And it's not FDA regulated, like the supplement
yeah.
industry is filled with anyway, I feel like there's so many things that I want to talk to you about, but we just don't have the time for it. I do.
Sorry.
No, it's
Yes.
okay. Honestly, like you
It's
should
a
come back.
good
You should.
question. I'm
I don't
passionate
know.
like
No,
you about it.
this was a really interesting discussion. I feel like even just this question both of us could talk for an hour about it. So you should come back on the podcast if you want to. And if you are ever in Boston, you should come here. We do an
Okay. Yes.
in-person, we do a
My
live.
chairman. The chairman of my company is in Boston.
Oh,
So
great. Yeah. Yeah. No, we'll have to do.
I very often some board meetings in Boston, and I love to go back to Boston.
Yeah.
Yes. It was a very nice.
So
I really like the podcast.
last question, because everybody
Okay.
gets
One
three.
question. Okay.
I don't
Good.
want you
Oh
to
yes.
shortchange me with two. So the last question is, I draw a lot of inspiration from science fiction. Especially when I think about the future, I think of utopian visions of the future. And that's something that I think about to really propel me to do some stuff like this podcast, to be an excellent surgeon every day. Those are the things that propel me to do the stuff that I do. What are some sources of inspiration that you have? And if it's science fiction, that's great. It doesn't need to be science fiction though.
In fact, it is. I love science fiction. I think it's a very interesting genre. Uh, it's it fits with my nerd personality, uh, and what if
Yeah,
is
exactly.
it's what we should ask every day, and what if it was different, and why it we take for granted that it is like this, but it could be different, and what if.
Mm-hmm.
And that what science is about. It's not science fiction. It's
Yeah.
also science fiction as we are talking about the huge gap between the progress of science and the mindset of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the science fiction play a role in that, because you heard that I'm French. I'm French American,
Yeah.
and I've been raised in France with Tintin,
Yeah.
Snow White. But when Hergé drew that travel to the moon, the
Yeah.
rocket landing, and
Yeah.
it didn't exist. But when I saw the real moon landing from the US,
Yeah.
I was prepared by that,
Wow.
because it was, it's something, and I would love to see very good. There's so many good science fiction writer, but what writing about longevity, so people get slowly accustomed to the idea, and they
Yes.
said, "Oh yes, I read that in a book. Oh, I thought it was pure science fiction, but now it's science," and then
Right.
it helps,
Right. Right.
because it's just you read Jules Verne and the submarine, and
Yeah.
and then people say, "Oh yes, it was
Yeah.
when it was not existing, but
Right.
it bridged between what's, so it plays and it's open your mind, it's fun.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely.
Yeah. That's cool. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. Thank you for everybody who's listening out there. Please like and subscribe on the bottom. And thank you guys. This was a really fun conversation, and we will see you in the future. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
We appreciate you taking part in today's episode. Take this chance to reimagine a better future by joining a community of futurists who strive for a remarkable world. Be a part of this growing network and contribute to making the world a more positive place. Visit thefuturistsociety.net and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a drop of hopeful futurism.